Education, and director of the MAP program, and my co-director right here is Dr. Neil Knobloch, who's a colleague of mine in the same department. And I want to make sure I introduce everyone here today. We have Tori Crops, who's a PhD student of mine, hails from North Carolina. First year PhD student. Another student of mine, Brittany Brown, who works in the MAP program. She's a second year PhD student from Arkansas. And then Amonte Martin, who's a master's degree student, first year master's degree student of mine from Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. And so this comprises the MAP team, although we are missing one individual, Arminda Boyer, who's an undergraduate student, junior, ag communications major from Indiana. And she's, so she's in class, I assume, today, but she's another part of the MAP team. So that comprises the MAP team. So I want to say thank you all for coming out today and taking time out. I see some faces from yesterday, taking time out of your schedule today to come support us and engage in what I know will be a phenomenal presentation by Dr. Jennifer Cohen, who's a molecular biologist in training. She received a PhD from Johns Hopkins University, and so she's going to share with us, as she has been this week, some great ideas as it relates to this topic of mentoring, which not just focuses on, although our program, that program, focuses primarily on mentoring, on enhancing mentoring relationships among females and underrepresented minorities. Our program is geared and is inclusive of everyone across the campus, not just within the college, but across the campus as well. And our programs pursue that goal as well. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to step aside and I'm going to allow Dr. Cohen, Dr. Jennifer Cohen, to come up and get us started. And again, what I know will be a very engaging discussion on this topic that I'll let her introduce.
Thank you. Thank you. So I have spent the last few days on campus. This is my first visit to Purdue, and I want to thank the MAP program and your awesome team for welcoming me, inviting me to come give a presentation yesterday to students and today to faculty. And if you listen to Dr. Esther's introduction, you might be asking, like, why is she talking to faculty? I think that part of my disclaimer and my qualification for being able to address you today is that I was a graduate student not too long ago. I earned my PhD at Johns Hopkins in 2010. And I have an academic background that is unique. So I started at Community College, City College of San Francisco in my hometown, earned my AA, transferred to historically black college, Howard University in Washington, D.C., and then did my graduate training at a Research One institution. So it gives me a unique perspective on the types of mentoring relationships. What I have seen a lot of unsuccessful and successful examples, and so that's why I'm here to share what I've learned. So my goal today is to start a dialogue about students and faculty and your needs when it comes to mentoring. Really provide a supportive environment. It's great that we have a small group here. I hope that the organizers don't find this disheartening, because I've learned that it's better to serve a smaller group of people, serve them well, and really address some needs and have a good discussion than to dilute resources and services trying to have a broad message. So thank you again for coming. And I'd like to, again, facilitate some of those conversations around what your experiences have been with mentoring, what you know to work and not work. I'd like to get you to start reflecting on past experiences, what it was like for you to be a mentee, not just through your academic relationships, but also professional, and some challenges that you face both as a mentee and a mentor. And then let's talk about, at the end, some strategies to help mentors mentor. Okay. And here's our agenda. We're going to start with highlights from yesterday's presentation. The title of the workshop was In Search of Building Highly Effective Professional Relationships. They're going to go into an open discussion, and I invite each of you to volunteer your perspectives on some of the unique challenges that you've faced here at Purdue. And then we're going to break out into two small groups and share some of our personal mentoring experiences. And in the interest of time, I would just ask for a couple volunteers to just share your experiences so that the entire group will have access to your knowledge. Then we're going to discuss some benefits, issues, and strategies for mentoring women and minority graduate students. Dr. Esther's and Dr. Knobloch's program, the Mentoring at Purdue, focuses on enhancing mentoring experiences for women and for underrepresented minorities. So we're going to target in on that and share some resources. I have one case study, one example of at the University of Georgia where they have been able to use an approach to create quality mentoring that addresses the administrative level, the responsibilities of the faculty and the responsibilities of the students. And I include a link to that article for more information. And lastly, we're going to get to a brainstorm. How do we bring the content? We were talking about this before I started. You guys, you're our people, right? How do we bring important content to people who are not here? And so we're really going to be looking for ideas to change culture here at Purdue. All right, so yesterday, the workshop. The topic, building highly effective professional relationships, mostly focused on mentoring relationships. And the content, we started off by defining what mentorship is, understanding the differences between a functional and dysfunctional mentoring relationship, the consequences of dysfunctional relationships, built a consensus around the importance of mentoring relationships, of mentoring as relationships, and dynamic and complicated. We also discussed the mutual benefits that both a mentor and a mentee receive, and just developed some tools and I shared some tools for being proactive as a mentee. Some of the key discussions that we had were around pseudo-mentors, or advisors or coaches who are in positions of mentorship and who are cleverly disguised as supportive and knowledgeable, and who may not have the skills to actually affect positive change in a student's academic and professional career. So how to recognize when you're not being mentored. The students, I hope that they took that away, some examples, and strategies for taking a proactive approach to creating a board of directors. So as a graduate student, I had two experiences. The first 5 years of my PhD was completed in a molecular biology department, and I had a strained relationship with that advisor, and as a senior student, transferred to another lab and another department. So I was able to make that transition because I had already established relationships with other mentors in other departments. So I had somebody earmarked in the Department of Cell Biology who was completely aware of my interests and my skills, and who took mentoring seriously. So that was one example that I shared on how to collect mentors and collect advisors, because it's just really unfair to expect, for students to expect that one person, one mentor is going to be able to provide them all that we need, right? And one of the interesting things that I like to do, this is how I improve my presentations, is I provide index cards. After a presentation, I ask questions, and I'm able to gather some feedback. And so the question that I asked the students yesterday was, what do you wish faculty realized about mentoring? And I will ask you the reverse of that. What do you wish students knew about mentoring? And a major theme that came up was the importance of cross-cultural, cross-racial, cross-ethnic mentoring relationships. So I'm going to read to you just a few. What do you wish faculty realized more about cross-cultural mentoring? As I mentioned, faculty need to realize that one size does not fit all for mentoring. 2, to encourage students with their goal making. And 3, to not use intimidating communication styles. Another student commented saying that he or she would like faculty to be clear about what they offer. So if you don't want to be a mentor, provide an academic training environment, be honest, and offer opportunities for that student to find mentors elsewhere. So this is touching on the importance of colleagues and access of the student to the colleagues, the network of your advisor or your PI. A tip for faculty, I like the way this was phrased. Faculty who are part of the Faculty Senate here at Purdue should advocate greater oversight of mentoring, and good mentoring should be a tenure requirement. So I thought that was very direct. The importance of cross-gender relationships as male mentor perspective. That somebody would like to see the focus of how do you relate if you're a woman student with a male PI. Faculty, the pseudo-mentor is not a benign activity. And it takes time and effort to develop PhD students. Students really need good mentors and not just advisors. So that's just a little bit of the feedback from the students, that I didn't want to miss the opportunity to have access to the students and not bring it directly to their mentors, you. So although that's valuable, one of the points that came up yesterday was faculty are faculty because they're experts in their field, because of your expertise in training and your division, and oftentimes not trained when it comes to teaching or mentorship. So drawing on your knowledge and your experience, I'd like to talk a little bit more about how you learned to be mentors. And Tori's going to help us out by writing our responses on the board so that we are all in the same reference. So can you think about how you became a mentor? There's this common misconception in academia that if you're on staff, that it is safe to pair you with a student, and that you have the skill sets to simultaneously promote yourself and your career and train a student to be the same. So can you think of, did you seek professional development? Were these skill sets that you acquired in your education? Are you just good?
I'll get the thing started.
Thank you.
I had a really good mentor.
You had a really good mentor.
And in my master's program. So when I think about mentoring, I think about what would he be doing
Okay.
if, I was still working with him.
Mhm.
So I learned, I guess, from a model.
Thank you. Dr. Esters?
Yeah, I would agree. I had in my PhD program, I had what I would categorize as an excellent mentor.
Mhm.
He was an African-American male. He was a department chair at the time. He was the only African-American department chair. I know he was the only one in the college, one of very few on hand at the entire university. But he had a stellar track record of mentoring URMs.
Mhm.
So just learning from him, and also when I was a faculty member, my department chair was really good. So I just observed him vicariously.
Mhm.
So he was good as well. And so I always thought to myself, okay, what is he doing well?
Mhm.
How can I emulate that?
So looking for role models.
Exactly, yeah.
Show of hands, who considers himself a good mentor? I think we should step back, right? Clearly, nobody's ready to talk about it. Yeah.
My spirit at the core.
Your heart is in it.
Exactly. But the point to that is that I think with each individual,
Mhm.
there's probably varying degrees of effectiveness. Sometimes it clicks, even with that individual, depending on what phase or stage of development they're in.
Mhm.
Sometimes your style works better than others.
That's true.
So I think it's very dynamic, actually.
I find that the people who I am most like, I can mentor to them much easier because I can put myself in their place easier
Mhm.
and see, this is what I would need at this point in my life, and I wish someone would have told me this.
Right.
So I can say that, but there's others I don't know what to say or do.
Wesley, that's
So as the diversity becomes more evident,
Yeah.
then I feel more challenged. So,
Mhm.
I think we need to open the discussion of how do we get to that cross, fill in the blank.
awesome. So I'll give you a sneak peek. It's going to be some responsibility. I'm tailoring it just to the faculty. That professional development, actually seeking it out, especially if the institution doesn't provide it. So we're talking about developing your competencies in saying competency. Okay. Developing your competencies across multicultural populations. And as we know, the best way to learn to be better at something is to practice. And so being transparent with students and letting them know that, you're my first international student. I'm going to try my best to think about ways to demystify this pathway. And I'm going to require you to be very specific about what your needs are so that we can set our own expectations, our ways to be successful.
Keep the discussion going here. I have learned how to mentor by not going to any mentoring workshops.
Really?
I took courses that were very insightful about human relations.
Okay.
A qualitative research methods course at Ohio State University taught by one of the best qualitative research group. Gave me a way of knowing that I could now think from different perspectives, women's ways of knowing, African American ways of knowing. So that was very different than, I didn't realize what that would do for me as a mentor. The other course that helped me a lot was even educational psychology. So effective teaching skills, what's the first step? You build a relationship before you say, hey, I can help you with content or skills. So really two very different areas that I would not have, thought of, I'm going to be a better mentor if I do these. Take these two courses.
It's valuable to look at how, like social scientists and other trained professionals, how they view the world and how they view interactions and relationships, right? Sounds like you're proof of that. Yeah?
I don't know that it works for everybody,
But that's so here we are, right? There is no cookie cutter standard for relating with students, and that's why it's difficult. That's what makes it a challenge. It's identifying where your student is at through communication, through establishing your expectations, and together charting a path on what their goals are and how you're going to, what that journey will look like to achieve those goals, right? Trial and error, like I'm a biomedical research scientist. We experiment, and we repeat over and over and over, changing one variable to understand a system. And that's another way to get to it. Thank you. What unique challenges do you feel like you're facing here at Purdue? I'm not familiar, so this is really when I need you to chime in, because I'm not familiar with what the culture is here. Are we talking about diversity and inclusion by statement only? We have it on the website. Or do we think about diversity and inclusion or mentoring at every level, the faculty level, the staff level, higher education, every level of higher
I think
education?
one of the challenges we face is that there's a lot of people that don't know about diversity and inclusion, and there's people that don't admit they don't know. So
And they don't know what they don't know.
Exactly.
That's what I
Exactly.
noticed. They don't know what they don't know
Right.
about doing this.
Or they
Very,
think
very
they
good.
know and they really don't. That's what we struggle with,
Okay.
I think.
I don't know if you've done it, but would you mind sharing with the group what you do? Because
Right.
I think you come from this perspective, from well-informed, because you work across university in your position. Can you share with the group?
I work with Advanced Purdue, and what we do is, one of our key projects is to do these faculty search committee workshops, where we try to educate faculty on the biases that they have. We all have biases, and we all need to realize that we have them. And so we're trying to get them to understand that you have this bias, and it doesn't make you bad, but you need to be aware of it when you're reviewing candidates for faculty positions, when you're reviewing people for P&T promotions. People come from different backgrounds, they come from different perspectives, and there needs to be an awareness. And I think there's a lot of people that say, oh, I know all that. We don't have a problem with that. And so it's trying to educate people. And that's I think one of our biggest challenges
Do you have
across the board.
good turnout to these meetings?
Well, it's required now.
It's required.
To serve on a search committee, so we do have good turnout.
So how can we incorporate that? The teeth
With
behind that, yeah, with mentoring, right? Let's start.
Well,
with-
I mean, part of it is if we're educating faculty on this for hiring and for promotion and tenure, then hopefully it will be pervasive in everything that they do. That's kind of our goal. But you kind of have to reiterate these things.
Dee, thank you for coming.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is important. I'm glad you're here, and you will be my co-presenter.
I just wanted to share the unconscious bias thing. I'm one of those individuals that thought, well, I've got this all figured out.
Right.
But actually, Kelly had encouraged you had shared stuff that Harvard had put out there. I don't know if anybody have seen these, the unconscious bias tests. You know, I've got 2 girls in high school that love science and things, and I'm like, I'm very passionate about this. I'm not going to have any trouble. Well, wow, yeah. I still, it showed, yeah, I have this unconscious bias like many other people. And so, but it's made me much more aware. And now every interaction, I'm kind of thinking about this.
Right.
So that's just one step, but then you have to internalize it and say, I'm going to do something different.
Yeah, I think the big challenge, though, is once you become aware, right?
Yeah.
I have to say, okay, for this person that I'm mentoring and advising, is this issue that's coming up, right? Is this really an issue, or is this some sort of cultural thing or some sort of just personality thing that it's
Sure.
okay and I can live with, or is that something that I need to work on? And that's the big challenge for me, is trying to
Kind
figure
of
out.
pinpoint these things, right?
So differentiating between personality quirks and cultural.
And what is something that actually
Preferences,
needs
right.
changed or
Sure.
fixed or adjusted.
And I don't think it hurts to ask the individual that you're coaching or advising or mentoring. I don't think it hurts to ask, I don't know all of your experiences, so can you enlighten me? I think we all would benefit from that, as a mentor and as the mentee, so. And that may be hard, that may be a hard conversation, but it's one that maybe, can be worked out at some point. Or in pieces.
Or have programs that support
Right.
How to navigate a difficult conversation, that's targeted towards faculty, but also to students. I know we have, so I completed a AAAS Science and Technology Policy Fellowship at the National Science Foundation. And the professional development really was beyond what I thought it was going to be. I was impressed with the fellowship, but we had incredible speakers come in and give us Negotiation 101. Authors come in and teach us how to have difficult conversations. What's the mindset that you're supposed to be going in with? How to separate your emotion from what needs to happen, or the greater good of whatever your goal is. So that type of professional development is valuable. Why aren't we getting it in school? I just wonder why we get it when we really, why do we get it when we need it, hopefully? Something to think of, or beforehand, So this is great. I appreciate this. Shall we move on to some barriers? Are there any barriers that faculty and staff encounter, barriers within the institution I'm talking about? Have you had examples of trying to generate some momentum behind an effort, whether individually or as a newly formed program, like the Mentoring at Purdue, the MAP program? Are there any barriers?
When I interviewed 8 years ago, I asked about diversity and how important is that, because I wanted that type of culture. And the response was lots of examples about women in my college agriculture. I didn't hear anything beyond that. And that sent us, to me, it sent a flag. A red or yellow flag, I don't know what color that is, but it seemed like it was a pretty narrow view of what diversity is. So I wonder if perhaps that might be part of it. They don't know what they really don't know, that the definition of inclusivity and diversity is maybe not holistically understood. And maybe I don't even understand the full nature of that. It could be maybe a narrow range of what that means. That could be a barrier. It could just be my own observation. I don't know if other people have experienced or observed.
That was my experience coming. I've been here 2.5 years. I came from Cornell, which was kind of the other side of that. And it was apparent to me, too, that kind of a kind of lack of understanding of the potential of diversity and inclusion at a place like this. And it was not, they didn't mean it maliciously in any way. They just simply didn't know
Right.
what the potential is.
Yeah.
It struck me too.
Whose responsibility is it to share or teach the responsibility and how to connect the dots between how mentoring or diversity, because these two tend to go hand in hand, is important to benefit not just the university but workforce development, whatever your particular fields or genres are. Who is supposed to bring that information to the decision makers? You know, is it the busy faculty because you guys don't have other things to do?
I would like to say it's all of us,
All
but
of us.
then who steps up? You know, who organizes when everybody is supposed to be doing it? But I think it's all individually, but then collectively. I appreciate the advanced program. It's a very organized, specific, purpose-driven initiative. So I think that has helped a lot. I did participate in one of your workshops, not because it was mandatory, because I was really interested. It was problematic.
Well, it's a combination.
Yeah, but I was very interested in learning, how can you relate to more people and monitor your biases, better understand how to relate well across many different realms.
I think one thing I would add is, I'll take our department as an example. I don't think it was an overt barrier, but I think one barrier in our department, historically, we have not been good at, in terms of student diversity, graduate student diversity. We've had a few students, URM students come through, but I do know, and Dr. Knobloch knows this as a fact, that they did not have good experiences in our department. Very negative, to the point that they would not, even if they were willing to give back, they wouldn't give back monetarily and otherwise because of that experience. And what I've done, and Dr. Knobloch has helped me too with this map, but personally with my grad students, is I've brought students in that are successful and that do well. And that's why I always tell them, yeah, I do have high standards, but I tell them that if you do well and have a good experience, it's going to make it easier for other students. Once you leave 10 years from now, your work that you're doing, the good work you're doing, will pay off dividends for other students.
That's right.
So that's why I try to make sure that they do good work, that they come here, they hit the ground running as best as possible, because you're going to make it easy for other students. But now there's a coach in our department where students come in and the coach is very inviting, very welcoming. They don't have issues at all. And I tell them if they have issues, let me know because I will address it. But that was not the case 10 years ago and historically. And I think a lot of times in departments at Purdue and others, students get mistreated, unfortunately. But that's not the case. I don't allow it to happen. And I think that we've established a culture in the department where if you bring people in, like these three individuals here, that it's important that they're treated fairly and they have opportunities like everyone else. And so now it's clearly, I think Dr. Knobloch would agree, the culture has changed and shifted in the department. And so that's what I would just add.
Yeah, so I agree with that, and out of that is bad examples. They become known
Right.
across large circles, professional circles. And we just cannot have any more bad examples or bad experiences.
This is the phrase is bad news gets
And we
its
need to have
shoes
20
on.
good ones just to even
Yeah.
start to
To
silence the
counter.
one bad one.
I was going to say that the phrase is that bad news can get its go around the block before good news gets its shoes on. It travels fast. Same with students; they know what faculty members have bad reputations. And with what you're saying, Dr. Esther, is I think that this is an opportunity when students do have a bad, uncomfortable, strained relationships, are mistreated, to pair off and do some peer-to-peer mentoring, right? Because there's value in explaining the ropes to the next student. And I've been successful with, I'll take the bruises and I'll tell you, this is fire, stay away from it, it hurts right here. This is safe. And there's value in that, so we can bring that back to pairing students and the importance of mentoring, that these experiences are not lost, right? And a lot of us have had tough experiences, but you are resilient and you're here. we learn from them. An awful experience still teaches you, how not to behave. Okay, so we're going to break into small groups. And I'd like to, 2 small groups, there are 9 of us. So 5 and 4. And I'd like for you guys to just share some of your personal experiences about when did a mentor make a difference in your life. So we talked about some of the challenges, right? Let's talk about some positivities, because that we can gain example and energy. When did a mentor make a difference for you, and how have your experiences as a mentee influenced your mentoring style? We touched on that a little bit. I'd like for you to continue to unpack that. And then we'll probably come back together and describe some experiences with cross-cultural mentoring. We're a small enough group to do that together. Please.
I counted. She said 9, and I was like, oh, okay, that's
So I'm changing hats. So, do you mind if I start? Okay, what do you guys think? So, when did a mentor make a difference for me? So, I had a really tough time in my first 5 years of graduate school. There were classes that I didn't pass. I failed my qualifier the first time. And I was a woman of color from San Francisco and learning to speak the language of science. And I had all my life wanted to be a scientist, and I met one person who said, yeah, you're not good at this. You should reconsider. What's your plan B? Weekly, she would say this. This is my advisor. And I started to believe her. And so it became a very toxic relationship where I would stutter, I would sweat profusely, I would second guess myself, and this was her style. It wasn't personal because there were 2 other graduate students. We all received the same treatment. So it came to a boiling point, and we had a professional divorce. And then, so this is leading to my round the mountain way to answer the question. My next experience was the complete opposite. I changed departments. I went to the Department of Cell Biology, brand new thesis project. I was determined to finish in a 1.5 years, partly fueled by my bitterness to show the previous mentor, I had what it takes. It was you and not me. And I was completely developed. So within 5 years, as a comparison, in 5 years, I did not present a poster. I had no publications. I didn't attend any conferences. I barely had time, one-on-one time. She was Howard Hughes funded, very important, accomplished woman. Some of those reasons are why I joined her lab. And the second mentor, openly lesbian, small lab, not well funded, struggling. We put our own gels. And within a 1.5 years, I had published, I had been exposed. She really promoted me. And so I got to see the difference between someone who can take mentorship to the next level.
me, and I think like that guy and I now we're good friends, and we have a good relationship now. At first it was really rough because I was like, I don't understand, like we're the same age, we were both college graduates, like I finished with my master's, he was in a master's program, and I was like, why don't you know, like this is really simple stuff, like what are you doing? And I really recognized, because I started thinking, like, do I get bad directions? Like question yourself. Yeah, and I was like, what is it? And I just recognized that I was expecting a level of work comparable to mine, and his experiences weren't the same as mine. So, I had been fortunate enough to have some experiences that he hadn't had before, and so we had different skill sets. But yeah, that was rough. But my mentor coached me through that, and I think I'm becoming better, but I still kind of struggle with it a little bit. But I think I'm getting a little bit better.
So I think I lucked out.
That's a lesson you can use in like every facet of your life,
Yeah.
right? Like with the clerk at the store, like why don't you know how to do that?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's her first day.
Yeah, exactly.
Some empathy. Actually, it's a kind of empathy.
Yeah, seriously.
Maybe you just took more chances.
I have an example, the last one. Cross
He did. He treated
cultural, cross,
students all as
yeah,
his
cross-racial,
friends
culture, yeah.
wherever they came from.
So it's not my own experience. Well, it is kind of my experience. My husband is Native American faculty here. I think he's one of two here. He's from Albuquerque.
Charter University?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's from Albuquerque, and we both went to the University of New Mexico, and then he got recruited by Princeton to do his PhD there. And so, he was first-generation college student, grew up in the barrio,
I've worked with a lot of graduate
and so going to Princeton was really quite intimidating. And so his mentor, which was his advisor, was the typical old white professor, and you would think it would be a train wreck. But and in some ways it was, but it wasn't because of the cultural differences. It was, so my husband's name is Chris, and he found it very valuable to be paired with
So now there's
this person at an institution like Princeton, who basically showed him the lay of the land. Like, this is how it is.
So when
How it is
we're making-
isn't fair, and it should change, but at this point in time, this is what
I didn't
you
really
need
have
to
a
know to
very
make
good
this
mentor
happen. And he did
in the
not,
area. So that's kind of like
Chris finished his PhD in 4 years, and this guy drove him
I wish
and
that's
had set very
this
high
process
expectations for him.
that,
And the fact that he was
however,
native and from
I also
Albuquerque, New
like-
Mexico,
it's a startup
was
thing at one
irrelevant.
point, and that
And I
is a
think
very
it
interesting
was
environment
hard, and I was along for that whole ride.
Right.
You know, we actually had kids
Tons
in,
of
he was an undergraduate, so we,
It's
you know,
large.
it's been a non-traditional path for
They're
him.
invested in your success. and
So it was,
watching it
the
grow.
point
So,
to that is
but
it was very
serious
valuable
was
to
like
have, to
outstanding
connect with
and
not
the amount of
Hispanic or
positive
Native American faculty
advice
at Princeton, but
discussions
the
that we
white
had.
guy
Even when the relationships were
in that.
extremely
At the same time, that guy knew
small,
enough to connect him
was
with
just
the right resources.
amazing
There was a
because
Native
it's like
American
everyone's
student
kind of
group
in the
and,
same
that kind
boat
of thing.
here's your business
That he found that
goals.
very helpful,
We all know
and,
what you're
changed our
going through,
life
we've been
course.
there, and so it's,
actually.
that was always a.
And now Chris
that was
does a lot of
very
mentoring,
positive.
but of mostly minority students.
I'm not faculty.
I think the cross-racial experience I would share is, I mean, I think, well, no, it's not a thing, it's a fact that when my 10-year career, a majority of my students have been white females, and they've done great work, really great work. And it hasn't been difficult for me. Them being a white female hasn't been difficult. I think the difficulty was sometimes the personality. Just some people just more resistant to listen and things like that. It's things that all people experience. But I think I've learned a lot from I didn't start out my career trying to recruit all the URMs I could. That's not. I just want to recruit good students or work with good students. But it just turned out, because I was at Iowa State and now Purdue, that the students I had access to were white females. And it's worked out great. But now that, because of MAP and because of relationships that I've had, now I have 3 individuals here, as you see, possibly bringing in another person in the fall. So now there's starting to be a change. But I think, and also, there's no some gender, cross-gender. I think Monty, I've only had, out of the 13 grad students I've had, they've all been female, Asian, African American, and white. And so I think what I've learned a lot from having those interactions with various races, race ethnicities, both genders, excuse me, that I now can navigate better this type of mentoring that involves these groups. But it's been good. I mean, I've just been lucky to have had good experiences. And so, because you hear a lot about it. I know you had focus groups you conducted the other day where you had people share their experiences with the cross-gender, I think it also helps me because I have dogs. I have 3 girls. So there's something, although they're younger, there's still something about working with a female that I'm able to learn and see through them and have them reflect on me. I think they should be treated growing up and all that dynamic. I think a lot of times men, especially men in STEM, males in STEM, just don't get it. And that's why they just forge ahead and say, this is how it's going to be. Just do it. And I think there has to be some type of compassion, some type of empathy. Although I think by and large, people in STEM would probably say, no, it's not how it should be. So that's what I would add to the conversation.
I have I pair undergraduate students with faculty at the center. There are 9 institutions, it's not just Purdue, it's a bunch of other schools as well that I work with. But I have a female STEM professor, actually, computer science. And she's paired with 2 male students, 2 male undergraduates. And so I think that's a long way.
I need to wait a week, and so I try to do with students, especially when they are in the writing mode of a dissertation.
Of course.
Because that's
They're in
such a
that
big
zone
amount.
right there.
And they're stressed. Yeah.
And they're just, I think they're just so surprised. And then they kind of, after a little bit, they kind of expect it. But it says something loud and clear without having.
And it says it
So
in
your current role, what's your primary
if
responsibility?
if I'm your advisor and I'm doing this, then
Things
this
that
is
you focus on.
an expectation.
So that is just a very specific strategy that, I think anybody can use.
Yes.
And it says something really, really loud and clear. I have, cross-gender, I have mentored many, many female graduate students. But yet I still find myself with not fully understanding how can I reach them. Even though my track record has been successful, I still feel like I don't completely get it at all times. Maybe it's the complexity of what it is. Yeah, but I just, it's the area I feel like, okay, I think I have the track record that shows I can do this, but yet I still feel like I'm fumbling. So I'd like to understand how to do cross-gender, and they at Purdue, even though that's kind of the lens that people use with this idea of diversity.
You're recruiting them into graduate.
I find this to be extremely odd. Any MAP seminars we do that are cross-race or ethnicity, everybody can show up. It doesn't matter what your race and ethnicity is. Anybody can show up. When the topic is with women, there's this nonverbal message that gets sent that this is for women only, and the men don't show up. And I think that is actually, it's an unfortunate
And we
situation.
share some of the things.
Now, there's a barrier. It's the previous question.
led to your
There's a barrier.
success
Then now I
in the
really
university and other
don't
departments, and
understand
how
some of the
how,
challenges.
like, you're getting your word out, if you will.
To now help
what you're
myself
doing,
become
how
better
you're
at that.
be successful.
Maybe that's just an
what you're learning.
observation that I've only experienced here. But there's something about,
Yeah, I can see that. And then, we always talk about the fact
Right,
that
exactly.
men and women to work together. Just like we
White men to ally for
Exactly.
women of color.
And white women to ally for women of color. It's all across the board.
I know that as far as cross-cultural mentoring, I have seen that for a lot of the professional development events that we hosted at Hopkins, women come. And trying to engage junior men. So if I'm a fourth-year graduate student, and we're just going to talk about how to navigate the process, how to choose a thesis mentor, what kind of questions you want to ask, how to write a paper, women show up for those events. So I've had majority women-to-women mentoring, and I struggle with relating to
And it
men.
can be, it can be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an answer. So I've been both in across 3 different colleges. College of Agriculture, College of Engineering, and I'm in College of Science, and mostly computer science now. And they're all distinct, different cultures. Quite. Computer science, I'm not sure, it seems like there's a certain track of success, at least from my observations, that many of the senior faculty tend to, this is how I would put it, they feel more comfortable taking on students that look and act and think like they do. And that's what they kind of know, that's the path of success, and I want more success. So these are the students I don't want to take a risk. I hear it over and over again, I don't want to take a risk on somebody that's outside that mold. And so, and Kelly and I talk a lot about this, is that we have this huge barrier. How do we get someone to first of all, even entertain the notion that there are students of every stripe and color that have something to bring to the table, and you could open your mind to some other questions that you may never get the chance to ask unless you go there.
So they expect for.
But, how do I have that conversation with someone who has an extremely successful program and I don't want to change course? So that's my question today, is how do I have that conversation?
So I do have a little information
Okay.
that we'll get to.
Okay.
We'll protect this for a long time, but
Yeah.
that will lead to just some benefits to the cross-culture, cross-gender mentorship and how to pitch it, the type of commercial that we might be thinking of.
We talk a lot about the business model, but the business model is diversity and inclusion in businesses, so universities need to embrace that.
Exactly.
And so, how much richer this person's experience be if he did enable himself to learn more about these different types
Almost
of
a little bit of an incubator, because Kelly and I helped run a National Science Foundation Center, and we work with, I think there's 13 different universities. And they're all, movers and shakers in the computer science world. And we do have really successful models of labs that are incredibly diverse.
Really?
And are very successful. And we keep standing these folks up in front of everybody else. And yet,
So what college are you attached to? The college?
really, we like them.
College side.
But I think the culture of Purdue is risk adverse.
It is.
And innovation is not, there are some really creative people here, don't get me
Yes,
wrong.
yes.
But when I think about myself as an innovator, why take risk? How will I get rewarded? The business office tells me I can't. I get a lot of no's from
In
them.
15 years.
You know what I mean?
anything
So
can
we're
happen.
like, yeah.
Amazing
And so
idea.
we're like,
It has to run the gauntlet, and it
person,
becomes
but
watered
it's
down to the point where it's no longer a brilliant idea. So, yes, I've experienced this
You
over and
see
over.
what I'm saying?
Symbolism.
The culture that hampers diversity and inclusivity, really step back one step. It has to do with risk. Or risk
We are very
aversion.
concerned
Okay,
about that.
I get it.
And so reward
I'm just
people
like,
for
make
failing
it-
because it led them to a better understanding or a reach that we hadn't.
Let's
Yeah,
talk
Logan,
about
you
this.
mentioned
Let's talk
the
about
incubator idea
moving
and
the
how
discipline forward.
everybody's in that
Let's talk
same
about
boat, but you all
innovation.
want to be successful to drive
And
this
talk about that with
innovative
anybody
idea.
who is,
And somehow, I think that
has done
would
the work
really
to,
help,
you know,
irrespective of the diversity aspects, that it could actually help support that initiative. I love that.
Yeah, to me, that's an aha of
It
this
is,
workshop.
yeah.
I had not thought about. Really, one of the topics we probably need to work on is risk aversion
Yeah,
or
yeah.
risk taking.
Yes.
It might help us move
Exactly.
in the
Yeah.
right
Because we
direction.
keep saying, this is important because if they don't want to take the risk.
It's kind of failed early and often to get
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
point where you really make this huge breakthrough and discovery. So,
And it's not easy.
right.
The other topic that goes along with that, in my previous place, University of Illinois, the Kauffman Foundation was funding a lot of professors to do mini grants on becoming entrepreneurs. And social entrepreneurs for those who perhaps don't see the have a financial investment that we could get a return on whatever new innovation that was being created. That to me inspired. When I watched what happened there, people started to think, let's take risks. Let's try something new. So that might be another way of kind of pitching it without.
The entrepreneurial spirit.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
That means something broader than just this is a business model of entrepreneurship.
Great. So I'm going to let them know that they have another minute and bring it back to the larger group and then discuss some of the themes that we talked about in our smaller group so that they can benefit.
After there for a while, it was a few years ago, I think in Discovery Park, there was this sort of social entrepreneurial, some of these activities happening, but I think it got killed in 2008 when we had a lot of budget cuts. So I got involved in it a little bit, and, but yeah, I think that
What was it called?
I think it was called social and something entrepreneurial. I can't remember the off. Yeah, because I met with
So I was glad
They
that-
said, hey, you.
coordinated that program
The
several
last thing I'm gonna
times.
ask you,
and we were
how would
thinking
you
about
describe,
writing
how would you
right when it got
compare
cut.
culture as relates to
That is a good avenue. There's a lot of entrepreneurial student activities.
how would you answer it?
These student groups really thrive irrespective of whatever diversity issues they have. That might be a pathway that we can think about.
How do you embed what's good for diversity and
Exactly,
inclusivity? How do
that's
you
the-
embed that into what
Was that
appears to
shocking to
be
you when you came in?
neutral?
Yeah, yeah.
Safe
Something
zone.
that
This-
everyone's
yeah.
discovered.
Yeah,
Well, I know,
yeah.
yeah, but you
Right.
know that, okay, that's a precursor
There's
to
not as
overall
many
thinking.
barriers.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, and I think if you ask people,
And I don't like sugarcoating
which
stuff.
is one of the
and
most,
once you get past the sugar, then you're like, oh,
that's
this is
one
what it
of
is?
Yeah, right.
Out of here.
There's so much.
The facade
You
does not
fooled
work.
me.
That does not
Don't
work.
fool me.
It's concerning.
But there should be highly correlated
Like, not make any progress.
Right.
That
variables,
concerns
if you
me.
will, that you can
Yeah.
say, hey,
and
if
so
we
to
are
say,
talking about
and leading institution
this,
like Cornell, 'cause Purdue-
then maybe it leads us to
is a leading institution
these other topics that
that
people won't show up for.
I'd like to invite the four of you guys to come back over. Thank you for the productive conversations. Come on back over.
I like it over here.
Great, you're making music. So, what were some of the themes that came up in your small group? Let's just spend a short amount of time on the qualities for the positive mentoring relationships that, with the first question, when did a mentor make a difference for you? Quickly go over how have experiences as a mentee influenced your mentoring style, but we're going to transition into talking more about cross-cultural mentoring. So, Dr. Esters, I heard a lot of your voice.
Yeah, so we, question one, because
Okay,
it was Brittany's fault.
okay,
You know, she-
which is fine, but as Group A, we did a good job.
to be honest, I guess
Type A.
You know, I remember vividly, I've shared this with Brittany, the one, and Dr. Knobloch too, it's my mentor made a difference, was when I was at Penn State getting my PhD, I was dropping the ball, I wasn't doing what I needed to do. And he wrote me a scathing letter. I mean, he wasn't cursing, that, but he basically told me, like, you're effing up. You need to stop effing up. And it was like, man, that was the first time that he really just laid into me. And I reflected, and I was like, I am effing up. And so I got back on the straight and narrow. But that's when, you know, I think there are times when you need to
Having an honest
take that-
conversation.
Yes, you need to do that, because that's the only thing, at that time, I don't think saying it any other way would have got to me. And that letter got to me. I still had that letter somewhere at home, I still have it. It made a difference. I mean, it was like, man, I need to stay, I need to focus.
So
that's when it
we can
made a
take that as a
difference.
tool. You know, we talked about how do you step out of the cookie cutter approaches to mentoring our students. Some students might need a good talking to. Some students, I know that the research shows that men respond better to scathing or confrontational approaches. You might want to reconsider that with a woman,
Yes.
or specifically a woman from Asia or from Hispanic culture. So, but it's an option.
And I think the last thing I would say, and I think also, to your point, I think it also makes a difference. I can see how a person from a different race, so this is an African American male saying this to a white female, I can see how maybe the white female could maybe turn the corner and say, well, this is a racial dynamic. But him being a black male, I think maybe even more powerful to me, like
You took it like an
someone looks
uncle
like me
or-
saying, look, man, you're really effing up. You can't do this. So I just add that.
Thank you. All right. Anybody from our group want to talk about themes?
I think we talked about providing opportunities, no matter what, and then your example of considering the individual and the individual's unique circumstances and perspectives. And I think we touched on that.
Dr. Knobloch, I liked how you were talking about becoming a champion and identifying a champion and how that was important to you. Can you quickly share that with the group?
Sure. So there are times when students need help, and in the particular example I was talking about, This was not even one of my students or one of my advisees. And I stepped up and asked some really tough questions to the decision makers, the right decision makers, so that I could help that student reach a resolution. It was highly emotional and it was very painful. I think when they see there are people that care about them, even if they don't have maybe their own personal vested interests, it sends a very strong message. And you have to just be aware that there are times when you need to do that, but I also think there are times when you need to choose wisely and not maybe do it so frequently that then you're not taken seriously. You know, if you're championing
Be strategic
for
when you're going to
small
rock the boat.
causes, you gotta know when they're big causes, if you will.
Thank you. Okay, so in our group, we started to talk a little bit about the benefits for some challenges, but also the benefits for cross-cultural mentoring. And women I really don't like to start with studies show, but studies show that women who are mentored, they excel faster and they go higher levels than in comparison to women who are not mentored. So when it comes to cross-gender mentoring, please don't shy away from it. You can really be a platform, a catalyst for somebody's career. Also in our group, we touched on the pitch. What's the commercial language behind trying to influence someone who may be risk-adverse or has not had previous experience with mentoring a student of color, an openly gay student, a student with disabilities. So I've included here some of the potential benefits that we can share with our colleagues and then we can think about for ourselves. Of course, there's the tangible benefits of being able to assist somebody with their project and promote someone's early career, an increase in your own power, and sharing your network. I left a blank there. If there's anything that you'd like to add to that, welcome to do that. And also the personal rewards where it's just validating, right? There's a pleasure that we as mentors can gain to see your mentee make achievements and be successful. And there's also a sense of competence. So cultural competency, what we were talking about earlier, this is an access. This is your in on how to relate with other students, other cultures, other populations. And then some extra benefits that gaining the cross-cultural exposure and competence makes you a leader amongst your colleagues, and that now you can mentor peer-to-peer with your colleagues, and you might be a go-to for, how did you do that? Or, I'm having a really tough time, I want to have a difficult conversation, I'm not sure how to approach it, I'm taking the lack of eye contact as unpreparedness or insecurity, when it might be, in fact, I'm being respectful. So that's one example of how, if you're not aware of culture, you might interpret something in the wrong way. Yesterday, Cecilia talked about being able to say, in response to her mentor when given a task, yeah, I know. And what she meant was, I understand and I will do it. Yes, I will do it. Not, I already know. You're telling me something that I already know. But the advisor was taking it in the negative way, which influenced their relationship. So another extra benefit is you're making a human capital investment that promotes equity. We're talking about ultimately affecting workforce diversity. This is a grassroots approach, right? This is what we can do here at the university. I have included one strategy for enhancing the capacity with cross-cultural mentorship. This group at the University of Georgia have an article. Okay, good. Brittany has the paper. You're familiar.
I don't have the paper.
I emailed it to you, so you will have it. Thank you. I couldn't have planned this better.
I need to work on it now.
This is a proof positive of the learning that goes. This is a mutual benefit. But I encourage you all to take a look at this article. not only do they give you faculty strategies, they talk about student strategies. I'd be happy to email you the link if you don't, it's kind of long. And the strategies for faculty are to seek development. You want to do a self-assessment. What do I really need? Am I good at this? Where can I acquire skills? How can I learn to be better at this? Look for diversity training and multicultural competencies, whether it's within your environment or in an unconventional way, interacting with people that who normally wouldn't cross your path. So if you have children, perhaps play dates with the entire family of your child's friends, family. Just think of some ways that you can expand your exposure. And another strategy would be to create developmental networks. So, particularly with students of color, being limited to the network or the pedigree of your advisor is damaging for retention and for the promotion of the students. And so having a diverse network yourself and being able to promote your student through those networks, they can be through professional societies, they can be diverse, you can think of ways, is important. So this is how they will be able to be successful. And again, they outline the responsibilities and strategies for the institution, for the university, what they did, the faculty, and then how they instructed their students. And through time, we're able to have a successful outcome. And these are additional resources for the cross-cultural competencies. So how can we develop our skills? How can we expose ourselves? Consider the Society for Diversity. This is a website link. You can learn, just get familiar with what's popular. Don't feel uncomfortable with applying to the Journal of Blacks in Higher Education. Don't feel uncomfortable with, adding your name to a listserv to learn about White House initiatives. What does the federal government say about mentoring, and what are their models that they're using? So I've included at the bottom in the federal government bullet some resources there. The National Conference on Race and Ethnicity. Go to where the thought leaders are. Even if you can't attend this year, it will be in DC. I'll be there. If you guys come to NCORE, please let's go do something together. If you can't attend, look at the website and see who the speakers are. Maybe one of the topics would be interesting to you, and you can email that person directly, or look for presentations that are posted. Cultural specific and gender specific journals, blogs, listservs, podcasts, they exist. This is a way. Another resource would be the Chronicle of Higher Education. You can use social media, TED Talks, recorded videos, YouTube. There's some champions out there talking about what's working, what's not working, specifically in higher education, diversity, mentoring, and of course there's some really cool talks about other things too. And again, your professional organizations. For a Society for Molecular Biologists, they have subgroups for women, for African Americans. This is an opportunity to, what are you seeing the needs are? How can I better suit the needs? Are there any resources that you would like to see up here? Anything that you guys know of? It's not a trick question.
Yeah, National Academies Press has, I don't remember the type, but National Academies Press has several documents that speak to issues of mentoring and graduate education. APLU, Association for Public Land Grant Universities, has resources, maybe presentations and other reports they've done on their website. That's another one. Brittany and I will be presenting in South Carolina the AABHE, which is the American Association for Blacks in Higher Education. That's a good group. Their national conference is Charleston, South Carolina in April.
Do you know any groups for women?
I don't know.
I know that there's the Association for Women in Science, AWIS.
Do you know any, Tori? Any come to mind?
SACMAS, the
Sac-
surveillance, yeah,
SACMAS.
and Abercrombs, and
And then there's the engineering, what's the women?
Wise.
WISE, yes,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
SWE. Great, thank you. So they're out there. We can just find this information. So here we are at the end. Let's do this final brainstorm on how do we avoid preaching to the choir? How do we avoid having this talk? I never want to give this again. Right? I mean, that's my goal as a diversity officer. I want to not have to have a reason to have that job. So how do we bring the best practices, some of the best practices that we shared in this room, but also what's working, the models that are working, evidence-based models, to the people who really need to know this. Now, Dee, we are grateful.
We at our workshop, we do bring up the research,
Mhm.
so on bias.
Mhm.
It's one small piece.
Okay, so that's an example of how it's working at Purdue.
Because, when you're in an academic institution, you have to bring up the research.
It's true.
One of the things our college is doing is it's tracking faculty and staff involvement in diversity and equity training workshops. And so we should be counting more of them. Like today should count as one of those, because they're trying to monitor that.
Engagement and all that too.
Yeah, the number engaged in that. So I don't know if advanced those programs and if that also would count, but
Well, we do new faculty, we do FAST for new faculty, but it's not on diversity and inclusion. It's more professional development for them and mentoring for them with one another.
okay.
Are we comfortable with the idea of tracking, making it something that's mandatory? Right? Do we care if people don't have the buy-in, they're just there because they don't want to be fined?
It's a very different question.
Right.
From this, I guess, from where I was coming from, is that it's being tracked because the review that we shared with you a few years ago said you need to improve. And so we need evidence that you're working on this. And so why not be more inclusive of what counts when we're talking about gender and ethnicity, race, ethnicity, inclusivity? I mean, why not? And so the mandating and the requirements, I don't like that philosophically. But it is organizationally what they're doing, because the federal government's saying if you do not show efforts that you're going to improve, there could be threats to funding.
Right.
And so it's just the nature of what we're dealing with.
Do you guys feel comfortable with talking to your colleagues, the ones that you know who are not good mentors? So that was good. So it was a lot of this and then stopped.
That's not nice.
We have to talk about these tough issues, right?
Yeah, but I think to your point, I think Dr. Knobloch, again, being in the same department, can speak to this too, but I do think that faculty would resent that conversation sometimes, because then it gets to the point where, okay, now are you trying to say that you're a better mentor than me?
Right.
And I'm of the opinion, I believe wholeheartedly in this. I tell my students, at the end of the day, proof is in the pudding. If my students do well, they get good jobs, they get great internships, their theses win awards, and they have good things to say about the experience, then what is it to argue? But again, but back to your point, I think you can engage faculty, but you have to take a very careful approach in how you engage the conversation or begin the conversation.
So not from a critical perspective.
Right.
Let's keep going with that. I really would like for us at least to walk out of here with one strategy that we can each employ, because other than that, the four of you guys will be back here at the next presentation.
Well,
Kelly is a VIP because she brought a friend. So you're setting the precedent.
Well, that's a good point.
Wesley, listen up.
That's a good approach, a good strategy.
each
Bring a
time,
friend.
bring somebody new.
Yes, I mean, I think that's good, but go ahead.
But he's a willing colleague,
Yeah.
so he's the choir too.
He reports it. Yeah.
So I expected a low turnout, and I was thinking I should change the title of the talk to "How to Make Your RO1
How to win
Unbeatable."
millions. And
Yes, yes,
When
you
will
know?
you get tenure?
Exactly, exactly.
Well, we had commented earlier that sometimes I feel lonely. And it's nice to know that, I do have colleagues I did not know that are in other colleges that believe in this, that have this passion and believe in this purpose. And so sometimes I think it's good to get the choir together,
Yeah.
so I know
Yeah.
who else is in it. So I think there's at least two ways we can walk out of this room. And one is, how do we try to mobilize ourselves collectively? And then how do we also find our friends to join the movement?
Great. Tori, will you write that on the board, please?
That's why you have to have mentors and all. You have to have peer mentors, you have to have mentors. You know, in your university, in your department, outside of your university.
To be aware, right? Otherwise, how will you know what's working
Right,
in a different division if you don't have a colleague over there that's saying, we got this awesome program?
right.
This is also maybe a sad thing to say, that we have learned that how you title workshops will draw more people in than others.
Yeah.
And I'm not at all suggesting that this is a poor title.
Thank you.
Just saying that when we put how to build partnerships with HBCUs, we nearly filled the room.
Really? Okay.
That resonated.
It's tied with grants.
Yeah,
You
incentive.
got it, you got it. And I just use that as an example, that we had a really good attendance on that one. We talked about nearly the same content.
I
Really?
think if you title something like "How to Make Your Grad Students More Productive,"
Ah, right, because that's a direct benefit.
that's mentor, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
It's true.
But I do think, marketing is a very important element of trying to get the response. We're still learning that. We haven't figured it
Marketing's
out.
not my forte.
Yeah, right. But that's a great idea,
Right.
Oh, yeah, productivity is what I'm all about. I'll show
Because
up.
that helps me.
Right, exactly.
That's
How do
great,
you
Wesley.
increase
Thank you for that.
innovation across the university? And it's through diversity.
Yeah.
What other strategies can you think of? So through marketing, what were the first two that I missed before?
Well, I think it's mobilizing.
Okay.
What are we going to call ourselves? Passionate believers, or those who have this passion for diversity and inclusion, the champions,
Network.
the allies. And then the second part of that, I think, is we need to try to connect with new people or ask people that aren't involved to go with us.
So taking a grassroots approach
Right.
to cultural change. Wow.
Because I do think there's something behind it being issues around diversity, whether it be gender and culture and things like that, taken more seriously when it comes from the grassroots individuals versus Office of Minority Programs or Office of Division of Diversity. Not that they have a place, but I think when I believe faculty and staff and others, when they see things come from those units, there is some skepticism, some like, okay, they're just rolling out something else. But I think when it comes from individuals like ourselves, who are more diverse and represent broad sections of the university, then, you're like, wow, okay, you got people from all these divisions come together who believe in this one cause, then I think there's something to be said, so.
Can we go through again, what divisions are represented here? So I know agriculture,
College of Science, Computer Science.
Yeah, we're a research center
okay, research center.
in,
Yeah, the
in,
advanced and then
Electrical.
electrical.
So you have 3 different colleges represented. Advances cross-cutting, right?
We're basically now part of the provost's office, technically. We're in affiliation with.
So you just think about at that level, that's like the word, more powerful when you think about, the ability to really get the word out and show that there's interest versus if somebody just came from the division of diversity. I think just there are things that preconceived notions attached to those initially that come from those units. That's just
If technology was here, then all the STEM
Yeah.
Right.
related
Exactly.
colleges would be
Exactly.
here. Even though we're small,
Exactly right.
That's
we
amazing.
almost had it completely represented.
Right.
One of the, I know we're running out of time, but I'll just add one thing. I worked in organizational development at Cornell, and one of the things that we would do when we would roll out a new diversity program, not unlike this, is that we would take it to the deans first on an advisory capacity. We're going to show this to your faculty. We want your input, deans, and then they get the programming. Right, and then we take it to the faculty. We're going to roll this out to your graduate students. Can you give us some feedback on this program? Then they're in
So
it.
you're getting buy-in.
Kind
We're
of
getting buy-in, and
Yeah.
we're delivering the programming
I like that.
at the same
That's
time.
smart.
They don't realize they're getting programmed a little bit.
Yeah, they didn't realize it, and we would get their feedback, and we, sometimes it was good and legitimate, but
So
then
you
they
put them
are
in an
in it.
advisory role, and then they want to
And they're
participate.
responsible, and they're...
Right, and then you get a top-down, the deans tell the faculty tell the graduate students, that it's
Like-
important.
And nobody wants to be on the opposite side of
Right.
the dean.
You can't afford to, right?
Exactly. Oh, this is such a great experience. This is really good. So thank you again for just coming in with your great ideas and being willing to share, and for allowing someone like me to present to you. I ask that with the index cards that you have, could you just give me some feedback? Well, what do you think about what we talked about? What do you wish I'd like to reverse the question on you that we asked the students. What do you wish students knew? What would make it easier for you? If students realized about mentorship, if you don't like these questions, I don't know why it doesn't say 1 and 2. If you don't like 1, question 1,
Because you have from one.
please, just, tell me
Where's
what
the
you
ones and
want
zeros?
me to know. And I appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
So, while you're doing that, let's give Dr. Cohen a hand. I really do appreciate, and I'll say this again before she leaves today, her coming out, taking time out, a couple of days out of her time, her schedule to visit with us. When I met her a couple years ago, I was impressed, and I continue to be impressed, and I was with her and the talent she has. And so hopefully you all gain something from attending today. And I'm not sure if she has cards, but if you need her information, I'm sure she'll share with you. And again, thank you, and to you all taking time out of your day. And again, share your observations and what you learned today with your colleagues and peers. And if there is additional program you want to see through our program, let us know. I know some of you I know, but those I don't know, I'm going to give my card to. It's back to front.
Oh, thank
so
you.
you all can have it.
Thank you.
No problem. And here you go, sir. And so again, I would just say that, and thank you for coming out. And I hope you look forward to the warm weather. It will be warm the next few days. I saw in the 50s. So
Yeah.
thank you.